Hello to everybody on the internet. This is Burning Numbers podcast with your two hosts here, myself, Josh, and Numayr Malik. We're going to be talking about homeschooling, everything from the social aspect to the success. I'm going to pass over to Numayr. He's going to kind of give us a bit of introduction on what he thinks about homeschooling itself.
So homeschooling is for me is a very easy topic to talk about just because I have one opinion on it, which is I don't agree with it, but I see the appeals to it because a lot of apparently from what I've heard, what I've read, a lot of students who do homeschooling do achieve better results just because of the better student to teacher ratio. However, the reason I have a problem with it is mainly because you don't get to interact with that many people. You only interact with how many or so teachers.
So are you talking about homeschooling with your parent being the primary teacher, or are you saying having private tutors coming in and teaching you?
I think for the social aspect, both equally have negative problems because with the tutors, you only meet, I don't know, let's say 10 people maximum. And you just with your parents, you don't even meet anyone new at all.
Yeah, I guess the introduction to new people is beneficial if you're going to be better at it, right? If you're in a public school or private school, whatever. But then a lot of people have a lot of family issues. So if you think about just the family itself, when you've got family issues or your parent relationship with the child is not very good, then that really affects everything to do with that, right? So if you're being homeschooled, then maybe your family relationship is going to be a lot better, which means that you're more positive, your mental state is better. If you understand where I'm kind of coming from.
I kind of do, but it's on the side that the time that you're in school is the time where let's say any human is taking in most of their surroundings. They're like absorbing knowledge more like it's the most useful in your lifetime. It's usually during your school time, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's best to expose students to all the social aspects of life in that time, and that's where school is very good. So then having that, you take away that certain part, and you have three quotients that are like your intellect quotient, the IQ, the SQ, and the EQ.
So again,
if you do you have IQ, SQ, and EQ, which is like your intelligent quotient, your social quotient, your emotional quotient. Your emotional intelligence, your IQ and EQ might be super high, fair enough, but your SQ will definitely be lower than one of an average school kid.
So would you say that all people that go to school and that are in that social part, that they are genuinely more social than other people? Because you get like a huge range of social to not social people. I mean, I've seen people at school that they're completely by themselves. They don't do anything. They don't talk to anybody. Completely shy. So what about those people?
But I can't talk about every single student specifically. But I'm talking about if you think about the average, if you take an average, right? On average, it is students that are in homeschooling are less social than students that aren't in homeschooling, that are in actual schools.
And you know that 100%? You know that 100%?
That's from what I've read. Apparently.
Okay, yeah. And what do you think about like the education side of it? Because I think a lot of people, their own ideas in life and their aspirations kind of get dumbed down by school, where they're not inspired to go and do things because they're having to do 50% of the time towards something they're not actually interested in. I think homeschooling can kind of, I know you still have to participate in a particular curriculum, but you can really focus on the things that you enjoy more. And also your parents know you so much better than teachers do. So if you're being taught by your parents, then they're going to really focus on you as an individual. You got more one-to-one time, which is a big issue that we have in society now, where every teacher is dealing with 30 plus kids. So if you think about like a normal distribution of successful people that work well in, like us, receiving information in a 30 to 1, or now you're in a lecture is doing 250 to 1, right? So imagine now that everything that you did was 1-to-1. It would be more expensive, but if your parents, I guess actually, I guess you can actually do a master's degree 1-to-1 with your parents, could you?
I don't think we have a master degree. No, but the thing is, you don't. I think homeschooling is it. I don't know if homeschooling is usually with parents. Though. I thought mainly it is bringing in tutors or teachers to come teach.
I don't know about like higher education. I think higher education you just can't homeschool.
I don't think you can homeschool higher education. I think we're talking about
You can.
secondary and A
It's called an
levels.
online course, but in terms of like your GCSEs, A levels, I'm pretty sure you can do like homeschooling, and then you just take the tests to see, and then that's how you get your qualifications, right? I mean, however you gain that academic. I mean, we could just go to school now and then not actually learn anything from the teachers. We go home and do all the reading, and therefore we're technically being homeschooled. We're just taking the test at the school, right?
That was some of my AS levels.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
go on.
I'm saying the with that is, yeah, students from what I've read have tend to get better grades in homeschooling.
Mm-hmm.
But then you get to the issue: is homeschooling really is grades more important than the socialization aspect? And then that's when your priorities are, and it depends where your priorities are.
Okay, but if you think about like society now,
Mm-hmm.
you just walk around your house today, then you're probably going to see some socialization that's actually happened. Everything is on the mobile phone, and everybody's just on their phones, sitting around the table, not actually talking with anybody. So maybe homeschooling will almost make you associate your house is not just somewhere that you're at home and you're on your phone or you're on the computer or watching Netflix, right? So maybe like the association, I think we talked about it a little bit on the other podcast that we did, where
Mm-hmm.
you go to school and then you associate school with education, and then you come home and you don't learn anything. So most people leave school and they don't actually spend any time learning. They just work, come home, Netflix, games, whatever. I think the potential association with home learning, and then you're actually going to socialize quite a bit with anybody, and you're probably going to build more meaningful relationships with individuals than you are with a huge pool of people at school.
The thing I have with that is like you bring me you over your time at home, because you spend, let's say, 6 hours a day awake at home. Ideally, let's say like 4 to 10 p.m.
Yeah.
is the average kids staying up at home. In that 6 hours, you already have, and you're doing that over that course of like 16 years. You're already built up that meaningful relationship with your parents or whoever lives in your household. And the one thing you said about like being people being like, just, what is it, like you said, they go home and it's like they're less sociable at home, right?
Yeah.
And they find that to be their social life now because they're on mobile phones and stuff. But if you see, especially like in this lockdown right now, people have found themselves from being at home, like even me myself, like we've forgotten how to be sociable outside. Not forgotten, but like our social ability outside has decreased from being at home.
Is that just you? I don't feel
I
don't feel that's the case. I feel like it's more exciting to go outside and meet somebody just because we don't have that social part.
But when I've been talking to people about this, I think the general consensus I've had is that people are, it's harder to go outside.
Yeah. Okay. I think that it's a little bit weird in that sense because obviously we're in the midst of a pandemic. So going outside and
Yeah.
socializing, you got all these restrictions, and then you have to worry about how close people are, 2 meter social distancing. You can't even see each other's faces and things like this, right? I think that's a bigger issue than just whether it's homeschooling or not homeschooling. I don't know. Would you homeschool?
No, but that's just an
children?
example of saying. This is just an example of saying that staying at home does have these negative implications on people.
Okay, but homeschooling.
Yeah.
Home doesn't need to be you're at home. I mean, you could just like if you say you work from home and then you spend
Mm-hmm.
2 days a week at Starbucks working, then you're not you're still homeschooling, but you're in a different setting, right? or
Okay.
different people. And you don't have to just gain all your education from like a tutor or your parents. You could go to conferences. You could go to social meetings and talk about other things. Whereas school, you're in the curriculum and just the actual school. You're not going to be able to have the opportunity to go other places, right? Like, for example, we had lots of school trips where we go to the London Science Museum or this museum and this museum. But not every school does that. And I don't think we even did that as much as what we could have done. But there was a foundation of learning that you can build up and experience that you gain via those things. And also having like aspirations or being inspired by the things that you can go and see. I think there's more opportunity when you're homeschooling for that.
Oh, there's definitely more opportunity when you're homeschooling for that to occur.
Yeah.
But I think especially in schools, those weren't exactly like curriculumly like motivating for everyone. It was more of the idea that it was meant to be more of an inspiration.
Yeah. But I think that's what schooling in general misses out a lot of, like inspiration. Most kids, like, how much of the subjects that you did that you actually enjoyed?
I only did 2 subjects that I enjoyed.
There we go. So 8% of the time you just spent doing something you don't want to do, right? Now imagine that you can actually kind of skew your time to go and do more of the physics, and then I think there's much more potential for people to be progressing further and becoming the people like Elon Musk or Albert Einstein when, as a kid, would they being homeschooled and the parents are focused on the education. For example, me, I want to teach my kids about finance from the age of like 4, 5, 6, right? Because that's kind of my specialty and my interest. But other people, I know, Basir, my friend, he does web development, so he's more likely going to be teaching his child about coding from an early age, right? So you get all these like coding and prodigies, right? But if you, as a parent, then leave all of the education and think, I don't need to teach my kids because they go to school, and I think a lot of parents actually have this problem, then they're not going to bother teaching what they are. And I think a lot
But
of your
then
inspiration as a kid is about your parents.
That's more of a parental issue than it is a schooling issue.
Yeah, but it doesn't allow for the parents to do that. So if you're a parent and you think, okay, let's say you have your girlfriend cleans, you're less likely to clean because you know that that person is going to clean, right? Then imagine that I'm just going to put you, then you break up and you're alone and now you have to clean, right? So your environment changes your need to do something. You might end up actually enjoying the cleaning, but you wasn't given the opportunity, or I don't know what the word is.
No, because you understand school ends at 3 o'clock, right?
Yeah. And then kids come home and then they play games and they go on Netflix and they go on their phone. They don't do it. They play Call of Duty.
No, not every kid does that though. Like you have, like if
During
you,
your GCSEs, what did you do when you go home?
Huh?
What did you do when you went home GCSEs?
I used to train table tennis for 2 hours.
Yeah.
To go home. I used to probably do my homework and then play games.
Okay, so you did the mandatory thing that school made you to do. You did the social thing that actually has nothing to do with whether you go to school or homeschooling, which is the table tennis. And then you played games.
No, but it depends, because table tennis was, in my head, was a mandatory thing to do.
Even better, right? Yeah, I think that a lot of...
But the thing is, it took me personally till uni to understand that I should be working. Like when there's opportunity to work, I should be. In school, I didn't understand that.
Okay, and do you think if you was homeschooled and therefore your home life was partially filled up with education as well, you would have taken a much more different stance on the fact that you need to actually study at home, or extra rather than just the thing?
I would say no, because I think it comes more of an idea of how you are raised, right?
Yeah.
Which was, for me, it was focus on family rather than school. So as soon as I got home, I used to just chill with my family, and I still do.
Okay, so your family took the idea that your education is done at school, and therefore home life is about the social.
Yeah, it's about seeing your friends and family.
So that's exactly what I'm saying. So you didn't take
Yeah.
education at home because your home life was about social. Now, if you take 50% of your home life and make it about education, you're now socialized to educate yourself at home as well, or any way you want to do.
You know what? That's a good point.
Finally, it took 3 different ways to explain. So yes, I think that sort of thing, and also I think a lot of children's inspiration for between the ages of like 6 to 10 all comes from their parents. So I know, like my little brother, he took a lot of interest into like war and dinosaurs, right? And he did a lot of watching documentaries and kind of education, if you like, learning outside of the doesn't ask you outside of the actual curriculum, what they learn at school, right? But that come from partial motivation from my parents. So you like this? Well, here's a tank figure, or here are some dinosaurs, and let's watch this together, you know? So I think also education becomes social. And then obviously, you know, once your education becomes part of your social life, then your friends start talking about things educational, and we start podcasts like this to make everybody more intelligent, hopefully. So that then changes your life in a better situation because your social is educational as well.
Yes, but then you have to think, which is that is it good for a child's mental health for them to see the place that they live as purely as a place of education? Because it's a bit strenuous, I think, especially on a child.
Why?
Because like for me, home is like a place where I can chill. I have a reset when I'm at home, right?
Yeah.
I have a reset for the rest of the day.
Is that a reason
next
because
day?
you don't like the rest of what you're doing for the day, or?
That's because you become you get tired. Like you're working hard every day, right?
Yeah, but if you do something that you love, you're not going to get tired. You could do it all day. This is why all of the billionaires are doing everything that they love, and which is why they made all the money, and they end up retiring the latest out of the population. They work until they bloody die because they love what they do.
No, but you can still get tired loving what you do, which is like let's say it this way. Like I wouldn't say I love my physics degree, but I love sport when I was a kid, right? When I was a kid, right?
Mm-hmm.
But after like 3 hours of training, I needed to come home and get a reset from that training because that training is a hard training. It's like,
yeah,
for 3 hours, I'm putting in like blood, sweat, and tears into this training.
Yeah. Okay.
So when I get home, I need to have a reset. And I'm saying that in terms of, and this can be translated into anything. You're putting blood, sweat, and tears into anything you do. And what you need is you can't just have a time where you're like putting blood, sweat, and tears, and then you're like, oh, next day go to sleep and power blood, sweat, and tears again. You need a mental block. You need a mental reset. You need time for yourself.
I think that your perspective on that is slightly wrong, in a way that, so I know that, so when we was doing our A levels, I was doing the day trading on the Forex market. So I obviously study with you guys and then come home from school, and then I'd do day trading, and I do that literally from when I got home to when I go to sleep. Then I'd wake up, check everything that I did in the night, go to school, come home and do that. I didn't see that as tiring. That doesn't, because I loved it. I genuinely enjoyed doing it. And it's not like I'm blood, sweat, and tears into that. Yeah, I spent a lot of time learning everything to do with that. But it was enjoyable. I wanted to do it. And so it wasn't the case. And I did that for like 6 to 9 months straight. Like that. And then weekends I mostly spent doing that, which wasn't good for my studies, but kind of probably the initial start to lead me to where I am today. I think I personally, I would love to homeschool my kids. Would you, are you favored more towards go towards school for your children?
I'm 100% favored towards going to school.
Do you think that if everybody was to do homeschooling, what sort of like effect that would have on society?
I think it would lose the community aspect of society. Well, not lose it, but like it would definitely lessen the idea of community in society. Because
Okay.
a lot of the people a lot of people like the community is really based like you've seen these people since you were like 10
Can you give me an
until
example of when something really, really big happens and loads of people come together on a regular basis?
on a regular basis.
Yeah, loads, like thousands of people come together all in one big room.
A football match.
There we go. So sports in general, I think is like part of the foundation of a community. Like if you think about let's say like Liverpool, what's the first thing that comes to your mind at Liverpool? For a lot of people,
Anfield.
that's to do with football or
Yeah.
a sport. If you talk about individual places, it's all about the socialization around the sport. I don't think education actually has that much profound impact on society as a social aspect. I agree that's where we start off socializing, but what about if most of our social come from like things like sports, right?
No, but then like because I have people that are season ticket holders at these football places, right?
Yeah.
Football stadiums. You have that, but then you go there, you watch the match, you leave, and you don't really talk to the people around you that much.
Uh-huh.
It's like my friend's been a season ticket holder at Crystal Palace for the last 5 years. And then he took me one day, and you sit in the same seat, surrounded by the same people every single time.
You know, when you go on holiday or you go traveling, there's you got the two options. You can go by yourself or you can go with the friends that you've already built up, right?
Yep.
And what happens if you go by yourself?
You meet new people.
You meet a lot more new people because you're kind of forced to, because we're social human beings and you're going to go and talk to loads of people, right? Like strangers. So imagine, I bet you any money that your friend at Crystal Palace that goes to all these games goes with somebody else. They
Goes with
go
his
with
mom, yeah.
some, yeah. So they have no reason to start talking to anybody else. But if you're, I don't think the fact that your socialization from a school actually changes.
But could you think the reason that we, when we go on holiday on ourselves, but that you bring the situation of holiday, we go on holiday by ourselves, it's because we wanna. There's a social aspect of us missing while we're on holiday because we don't know anyone. So you have to fill up that void by talking to new people.
Yeah, and so you do
And that
socialize.
void, where does that void come from? And that void stems from school because that's where your social starts.
What do you mean that void comes from school?
So so you have like a void of like socialization when you go on holiday by yourself that requires you to start talking to new people because you need to fill up that social void, right?
Yeah.
Like no one wants to go on holiday by themselves and just stand there by themselves. Like
Yeah.
it's a bit dead. So then you hit to the point where does that socialization come from? Where does it stem from? And it stems from school. That's where you start your social life, which is at school.
Do you
And
think
since
people
then,
that genuinely haven't been to school? Okay, I think the most social people that we have in society today are probably the generation of probably 35 plus onwards, and or even more. Go back 100 years when people used to go to school up until the age of 12, 13, and then they go work in a factory from that age. That's okay. They just missed out on what you would probably call the 3, 4 most critical years for socializing then. But they're very
no,
social people.
for me,
They're
the most
so
critical years of socializing is it's like from when you start school to when you end school.
okay, but when you're 10 years old or less, yeah, okay, I understand. Yeah, you do have a lot of socializing there, but that doesn't have to be. That's just more playing, and you can go out and play. You can send your kids off from age 6 to 10 playing for a period of time. Your socializing when you're 10 years old doesn't come from you're sitting in the classroom. Your socializing comes from you're playing in the playground.
Yeah, I know.
And you can do
But
that even if you're being home when your education is at home. When you're at school, you're not actually doing much apart from sitting there in silence learning.
when you're in school, especially in primary school, the main aspect of primary school is so firstly, obviously, you get your basics of education, which is there. But the second most important aspect for me is the play. It's like the time you're on the playground. It's the time you meet loads of new people. You do all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think you could do that. Or I think I would love to make or teach my kids at home. You're like homeschooling. You're gonna send your kids off to there. They're gonna meet up one day and be friends. That'll be the end of the Burning Numbers podcast. We'll cut it off there, and we'll see you guys in the next one.